Hey guys, welcome to the Eternal Archives. I'm Tim, with Bryce.
Hi.
And Cairo.
Hey guys.
And this is our official first video. We are going to be talking about the Star Wars prequels and basically be ranking them from our least favorite to favorite. And then the winner of that will, in the future, go up against the winner of what we decide is the best film of the original trilogy and then the sequels trilogy of Star Wars. So, we all watched the movies, took notes, and let's start with Phantom Menace. Let's go down some what we liked and what we didn't like.
Not gonna lie, I think you should go first because I'm looking at my notes and there's not a whole lot of positive in here.
Okay, anyway. So, opening scene, right? We get, we immediately meet Qui-Gon with a younger Obi-Wan. And within the first 5 lines, we have Qui-Gon showing his wisdom and kind of teaching Obi-Wan, which is actually a really cool thing to see. And we're assuming at that you've watched all of the films at this point, or have at least seen the original trilogy, because a lot of what I talk about, what I'm going to talk about, is kind of the how you feel. Well, not just spoilers, but also like how it makes you feel seeing these characters kind of before, you know. Because that's what the prequels were. George Lucas has gone out and said, I made the movies to be watched 1 through 6, but when they were made, it was 4 through 6, 1 through 3. So, assuming you've seen 4 through 6, watching 1, 2, 3 to see a young Obi-Wan immediately being taught about, the nuances of the Force, and he already mentions Yoda, and it's just a really succinct way to kind of make everything feel, I don't know. It feels like the same thing. It feels like Obi-Wan. It feels like, Qui-Gon is already a pretty fairly well-established character, and it just works. Now, why they are where they are is questionable. I'm not sure why they're acting as, what are they, diplomats, basically? Ambassadors?
Yeah, they were sent to negotiate trade routes, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. So, already it's a little strange, but, look, let's be real. The movie's not great. So I'm going to kind of I'm going to scrub forward a little bit. Past the fact that, instead of sending someone in to talk to the Republic ambassadors, they decide to try and gas them out and kill them. As if that's a smart idea. And then, drop troops on a planet that's like a peaceful planet for war. Like, yeah, okay, that's all chronological.
There's just a lot that doesn't add up in the entire movie, I find, and I don't know. Really, the only positive things I had to say was like a few cool scenery in the pod race and Darth Maul, right? Qui-Gon, I do enjoy. But probably the only scenes in the movie where you're not kind of thinking to yourself, I wish this was over, is like when Maul and Qui-Gon and Obi are having their fight, really.
Well, see, I know a lot of people feel that way, but for someone like me who is so involved with the Anakin Padme, love storyline, I really enjoyed, the first line they ever speak, like one of them ever says to each other is, "Are you an angel?" And then it's explained, and it's Anakin kind of showing his attention to detail, basically. It's just kind of, I don't know. And then in the very same conversation, when Padme is like, "Oh, you're a slave," he immediately, and it's not hinted at very heavily, but you immediately see his kind of, I don't know the best word to describe it, but it's kind of a strength and almost a defiance by saying, "I'm a person and my name is Anakin." Like he refuses to accept anything less than what he views as the truth, regardless of the fact that he is indeed a slave, and that is how he is defined at that point in time. Okay, so some things that really hurt the film were the unfinished CGI, which I want to talk more about when we get to Attack of the Clones, but the unfinished CGI in The Phantom Menace was painfully obvious,
It's like a PS1 game, almost.
Yeah.
Not good.
Between the different environments, and I know parts of it were practical, but not enough of it, clearly. Even the lightsabers themselves.
Go on.
Oh yeah, I was going to say even the lightsabers themselves had a bit of a hazy kind of vibe. Like, they didn't seem nearly as solid as either of the next two films or even as the original trilogy films. They just seemed kind of not, I don't know, just not as well detailed. Almost like it was an unfinished
saturation or something, right?
Yeah. Cairo, you've done almost no talking. Yeah. You want to jump in? What did you like and not like about the film?
Well, the way I see it is, if it's your favorite Star Wars movie, that's fine, because like I said, while I don't think that it's a good Star Wars movie, or really much of a good movie in any aspect in general, I will say, I did like a few things about the movie. I liked, obviously, that's like the first on-screen appearance of Maul.
Right.
In terms of him being, like live action with them having like an actual actor. I like, basically, like I said, Maul's basically my favorite Star Wars character when I really think about, I guess, the entire Star Wars as a whole, everything that Maul's done and they did. So, obviously, I'm going to like the movie because that's, like, the most that we get to see Maul on screen, like, for live action.
Yeah.
Because that's, like, the only time we get to see him live screen, like on action,
Right, so, other than the Solo story, which...
Yeah, one thing that kind of bothered me about the movie, like you said about the lightsabers, Maul's lightsaber looked orange in the fight on Tatooine. It looked really orange. It was kind of gross looking, actually. Jar Jar wasn't even the worst part about the movie. I think it's like, you start off watching it and you're like, okay, it's going okay. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's definitely not hit its peak yet. And then you start watching more, and I think it's not more of me just going like, hey, that's a bad movie. It's more about what's like, okay, all these things added up. It just doesn't really feel like a Star Wars movie,
I
get that it's supposed to be. I get that it's supposed to be like the prequel start for that new trilogy, but I don't think that they should have done it with. See, I would have liked to see more of like Anakin as young training,
Yeah.
more or less than Anakin just kind of being like a slave kid, and then like you said, yes, the Padme and Anakin thing, that's cool, but like. I just don't think that it was necessary for the first of a prequel Star Wars trilogy. I didn't like the pod racing scene. It's just like I don't know. I felt like they tried to cater like to maybe like younger people to get more fans that were young to go into it because of a lot of like the stupid little silly thing that Jar Jar did and stuff.
Yeah,
and,
I get that.
Like I just don't. Like, I guess it's just because at that point, I was still pretty young when, that came out, obviously.
Yeah.
So, I'm thinking that maybe, like, I had watched the original trilogy from, like, the late 70s and 80s, and then it's like, I watched that trilogy from, like, the 2000s, and I'm like, what the hell did they do? Because, like, I'm so used to seeing, like, a more straightforward, like, solid story Star Wars than seeing that. So when I watched that, I was kind of confused because I was like, at that point, George Lucas was still directing things, right? I just, like...
He's definitely still directly involved, whether or not he was actively directing.
Yeah, like, I mean, he was still kind of had, like, an overview on it. And I just don't see, like, how such a good trilogy that made its mark on, like, the sci-fi, I guess, genre.
It made the sci-fi genre, other than Star Trek.
Yeah. But, like, I just don't see how that can blend into something, like, with that new trilogy. Because, like I said, like, don't get me wrong, the prequel trilogy, it's definitely not terrible, but I can easily say that movie is my least favorite out of that, trilogy as a whole.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's just everything combined. I guess if you're looking for something silly and kind of funny and like a backstory for Star Wars, that might be your kind of movie. But for me personally, I like to be super engaged when I'm watching a movie, and that movie I just couldn't get into. I just didn't have any characters that I guess I really felt like, oh, that's a cool, solid character, except for Maul, because Maul's always, been basically my favorite. And besides that, it's pretty cool, obviously, like, like the Maul scene and, everything with, like, the fight, Duel of the Fates, that fight, I guess when I come down to it, the really only base thing I liked about that movie, I have three things. I loved Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon's great.
Yep.
I loved seeing young Obi-Wan, and I loved seeing Maul. That's the three things I like about that movie the most. And it's just because those three things kind of tie into later things for Star Wars, like the Clone Wars, like the animated series,
Absolutely.
the one that they just made a recent, the one that had like a recent reboot, like the new season. And like I said, it's a big Maul fan. That's really all I can say about that. I liked about that movie. There was really nothing that really drew me towards that movie to where I could solidly say, yeah, that was a pretty good movie. Like I said, no disrespect if that is your favorite Star Wars movie. But for me personally, it just didn't fit. It just didn't really I guess, get me when it came to Star Wars. I just didn't like it.
Yeah, I get that. And I'm going to say this. And this is a conversation for a different time, but I would watch Phantom Menace before any of the sequel movies in a heartbeat.
Hands down.
Heartbeat.
Right.
The Duel of the Fates scene is, to this day, Ewan McGregor's favorite... Obi-Wan's favorite fight scene that he's done, which bothers me. But we'll get to that.
I know.
We'll get to that.
See, now, personally, favorite Star Wars fight for me, lightsaber, it's easily the fight with Obi-Wan and Anakin at the end of Revenge of the Sith. It's just, how can you say that? It's like the entire prequel trilogy builds up their friendship and their brotherhood together, and then he just oh no, I like fighting this red guy with horns. It was the best thing ever. I had fun.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, we'll get to that because I know all three of us just want to talk about Revenge of the Sith. So we'll get to that, but we got to get to Attack of the Clones first. All right.
That's fair.
So starting with
I'm okay with Attack of the Clones, though.
Yeah, so starting with Attack of the Clones, the first thing I noticed, which is what I was talking about a little bit before, was the updated and almost perfected CGI. It was just so much better in every single... The lightsabers looked crisp, the actual environments looked way more fleshed out, and then you have characters like the bounty hunter who tried to kill Padme, but... Zam, yeah.
Or something like that.
And the CGI of her face changing, I actually really enjoyed that. Because it looked practical,
Right.
So and then what you later in the movie with all the Geonosians, the CGI just worked, and the clones and Bryce, I know you want to talk about the clones, so we'll get to that. But early in the film, some things I absolutely loved were kind of the almost childish banter between Obi-Wan and Anakin. The kind of thing where it was already a power struggle, because you could tell Anakin was extremely gifted, right? And then he says to Padme, "I'm ready for the trials." And then he says at some point to Obi-Wan, "I thought I already did challenge Master Yoda in sword fight." Anakin is strong and confident, whatever. Then Obi-Wan's over here just trying to keep a grip on things, and he's trying to keep him put him in his place. So it's the kind of thing when they're guarding Padme for the first night, whatever, and Anakin says, "I can sense everything that's happening in that room." And Obi-Wan immediately, no hesitation, goes, "Your senses are not that attuned." And then later, when Anakin literally does sense something, well, again, without hesitation, Obi-Wan goes, "I sense it too." It's just this competition between them that I absolutely love to see. Even though it does kind of hurt Anakin, because it's just kind of dumping on his pride. I don't know. That's just something that went through the entire movie that I actually really enjoyed.
I just thought about it. When you look at the prequel trilogy, from their chronological order, going from the Phantom Menace to Attack of the Clones to Revenge of the Sith, they get better each movie.
They really do.
Have you noticed that? The first one's not that good, the second one's alright, and then the third one's just it's
God tier.
Yeah, it's great.
I think it's fair. Now, I might stand alone in saying that Attack of the Clones is a good movie. Maybe not for the reasons it should have been a good movie, but it introduces, in my opinion, one of the greatest things that's come out of Star Wars was the Clone Wars TV show, right?
Agreed.
That, to me, boosted quite high on my list.
Yeah, and I will say, the creation of the Clone Wars TV show was monumental in making that movie more tolerable.
Right.
Because if you never have Clone Wars and you never flesh out clones as individual people like the show did, you kind of watch that movie and they just come off as soldiers. But when you rewatch it after watching Clone Wars and whatever, you kind of... It's not about recognizing different characters or anything like that. It's just... There's a sense of almost comfort, and it's almost like you know them already. You see them, it's really cool to see how the Jedi first found out about them, how... I don't know, I just think that works when you go back into it. But a couple things that I loved about this movie, and this is an unpopular opinion, but Anakin Skywalker is hands down my favorite character in anything ever. And naturally, I love the relationship between him and Padme. So, their love theme Across the Stars is top 3 on my list of favorite Star Wars tracks.
No, I like Across the Stars. I actually have it in my Spotify list. And I like the stuff with Anakin and Padme. Just, you're going to hate me for saying this, but there is just no emotion between the two of them in those scenes. Like, yeah, you can feel it because you know about everything else, but like, just in terms of their tone of voice, and it's almost like their tone of voices never changes when they're talking to each other. It's always very dry cut, straightforward, and I think that kind of is due to a big thing that Cairo spoke about, that Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen are like the templates for Obi-Wan and Anakin, but Matt Lanter and James Arnold Taylor actually give them their personality.
Right.
You know?
Although I won't really defend Hayden Christensen in Attack of the Clones, because yes, he was kind of just hollow throughout the entire movie. As much as I love him, he was not. I would not have loved Anakin Skywalker as much had he not completely turned it around for Revenge of the Sith, which he did.
Right. No.
Yeah, for Attack of the Clones alone, I get what you're saying, that he comes off as hollow, and even she comes off as almost standoffish, but I feel like that's in her character, because she doesn't really know what she wants, and she knows she has a job, and she's very... Like, she was a queen, since she was 11 years old, right? And then she lived the rest of her life in politics, heavy politics, representing her planet. So I expect her to kind of come off as a little more defensive, almost, as a little more sandpapery. Now, once again, I can't defend him, and I won't try to. He needed to be more lovable, regardless of, basically anything else. Yeah, I still love it. I mean, I can rewatch that movie and kind of just watch their scene.
I was just going to say, I 100% agree with Tim, and it was kind of interesting, I don't know, like you said, Anakin being your favorite character, I feel like you kind of have to love the Padme and the,
I agree.
Anakin story.
But I will say, I'm also a strong believer that he and Ahsoka, while the Clone Wars was happening.
Definitely. Easily. So, I think even more dumb to say that they didn't. Because, you look at them, you're like, oh yeah, okay. And then, you get to, the new season of Clone Wars, and you're like, oh, okay,
yeah.
Continue.
Alright, so let's move along the movie a little bit. So, Bryce, if you want to talk more about the clones, now would be the time, because... we still got to talk about Dooku and the fights and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. So, what do you want me to dive into here?
Well, just if you have anything else to say about the clones in the actual movie that we see. Not Clone Wars, but the actual clones in the film.
Okay, so
I know you're
the clones in the film that we
see CGI armor.
Oh, yeah, right. That's another thing I want to bring up is, in terms of CGI, this movie really does step it up. Now, Tim didn't know this until I actually told him this yesterday, and I didn't know this till a month ago or something. Not a single piece of clone armor was made for that entire movie. All the clones are CGI in that movie. So that's quite something, because they look real nice, in my opinion.
Right, and we were talking about there's just a single scene where there's a dust storm or whatever, because one of the ships goes down on Geonosis, and it's just all the different colorings of the blasters shining off the armor, and it just looks great, and it's completely 100% CGI.
You can even see the light from the blaster bolts reflecting off of the particles of dust in the air. The crashed ship. It really, for its time, I think it was quite something, really. But in terms of the actual clones themselves, just not going to go into a whole lot because I'll be here all night. But in terms of the actual history of them, that's their first ever appearance. So they're wearing the Phase 1 armor, which was just absolutely miserable because, the people that made the armor weren't actually humans. The Kaminoans there, they didn't really understand human anatomy that well and realize what was comfortable for all our joints and whatnot. So the armor was miserable. They switched sometime throughout the war, twice to 1.5 and then Phase 2, but that's neither here nor there. We also get to see some of the iconic clone blasters throughout the entire Clone Wars show, the heavy DC-15 blaster and the DC-15 light one. I can't think of the actual serial numbers for them at the moment. I don't think we get to see the blaster pistols, but yeah.
No, I don't think we do either. I feel like I would have noticed because Rex is great.
Right.
Alright, so real quick before we jump into the next movie, Dooku, the fight between Yoda, Dooku, Obi-Wan, Anakin, Dooku. That was a solid fight and definitely an underrated fight in my mind.
I think so.
Because not only do we see Dooku, who is an extremely cool character, because you kind of learn about him throughout the film, about him being a Jedi who left the Order, but who had trained Qui-Gon and trained under Yoda directly and whatever. And then, so you see him, you meet him, who's great, and we see Force Lightning for the first time since Palpatine. And then we see, like, some really cool nods, like Anakin with a green lightsaber. Like, that's really cool. And we also see how he gets his hand cut off from Return of the Jedi when he, loses it again to Luke.
Right.
I wanted to talk about something else, and it's about the death of his mother. Because,
that's pretty big.
Yeah, because everyone shits on his turn to the dark side in Revenge of the Sith. They're like, oh, it was so quick. As if it wasn't starting in that scene right there. He shows up to find his mother alive, to then have her die in his arms before she can even tell him that she loves him. Like, come on. Then, out of what I believe is an appropriate reaction, he kills all of these animalistic creatures that did this to her. Okay? He then falls to his knees at her grave and says, I promise you, I won't fail again. And then he goes through the entire Clone Wars, every event of Revenge of the Sith, and he turns. Why wouldn't he? Come on, this is his wife. This is everything he's ever fought for. Against someone who... nope, okay, we're not gonna get into this window.
Yes, we're not, because I will defend my boy. But back on topic here, are we going to talk about how that's the first time we ever hear the Imperial March played alongside Anakin in a scene?
Yeah, technically at least.
When he finishes telling Padme about how he slaughtered them like animals and he sits down, you can hear that in the background. It's kind of a nice bit of foreshadowing. I like it.
It's so good. And then we hear it again when we see, close like the last scene of the film with all the ships rising, in the Clone Armory. We hear the Imperial March played again with Palpatine overlooking it all still.
Yes. Oh, that was one more quick thing I wanted to add on to that, Tim, is this movie kind of marks what I see as the downfall of the Jedi from being a very peaceful, wise order.
Well, they went from being keepers of the peace to soldiers.
Exactly. Like, this is where the militarization and imperialization starts of the Galactic Republic. So...
Okay. Yeah, agree completely. My notes on Revenge of the Sith, I have a single note instead of pages of notes, and the single note I have says, everything about the movie is perfect. Does anyone have anything else to say about it?
It's pretty perfect.
Go ahead, Cairo.
I have a lot of things. While it's my favorite Star Wars movie, I had some things that bothered me.
Alright, go off.
Like that shitty CGI scene where not Anakin, Obi-Wan slides when the metal bar falls on his legs. Remember that?
Oh,
he kind of slides a little bit. I'm like, what? Okay then. I don't know.
That was a little janky. Do you know what he's talking about?
Yeah,
because I can picture
the Dooku fight.
Yeah.
Like he kind of slides a little bit. I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird.
If you watch the scene again, Dooku moves the metal thing not just on him, but literally moves it to slide.
There's no reason to.
I'm not going to defend the action, but...
And, when it comes to, like, I like, it's kind of dumb, but I kind of like the, R2-D2 scene when he was, ejecting the oil and setting it on fire.
Yeah, when R2 single-handedly took out 2 super battle droids? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a pretty great scene. I don't think anyone's going to argue with you on that.
Yeah.
Which can mow down, like, 5 clones with ease.
Which in the film previous backhanded the ever-loving crap out of one of the normal battle droids. Like, just ruthlessly took it out and just kept shooting. I was like, oh my god. Sorry.
So, I'm trying to think of a few more things about it. Even though I watched the movie, I guess, I like to watch Revenge of the Sith every few months. Because it's that enjoyable of a movie. Because I could watch it on a normal basis, like a show, but I prefer to watch it every few months. Just because why not just to keep myself refreshed.
Yeah, I feel that.
And like, I don't know. One thing I'll point out, especially, this is kind of a time jump from the beginning to the end. I don't like how, you remember when Obi-Wan and Anakin had that little talk, and that's the last time they meet until they go to Mustafar? I don't like, because, like, I don't know, there's always something that's kind of bothered me about that scene. Obi-Wan kind of, like, he was kind of, like, reminding Anakin, I guess, in some way. It was like, okay, you know, like, I still have faith in you, like, you still have a long way to go. And then he walks away, and Anakin's just kind of standing there like, Like, Anakin, there's just, like, there's that super cocky side of Anakin that I like, because I feel like Anakin would have been so much better if Mustafar wouldn't have happened. Like, he could have learned so much more and gone so much farther with his Force. Like, it's kind of sad because, like, I see so much potential with Anakin in the movies, and then you're just like, oh, wait a minute. Well, the original trilogy exists.
That scene, Anakin is not being cocky at all. He genuinely, for the first time ever on screen, apologizes and is very open to Obi-Wan about, you know, what he's been feeling and how he feels about Obi-Wan.
Yeah, like he opens himself up and tells him, like, kind of like what's been, like, up with everything, and that he's sorry for, you know, being kind of, like...
It's the most genuine we ever seen him.
Yeah, like, it's good, though, but it's just kind of sad because, like, it happened there, and then, like, what, like, by the end of that night, and just, you know, the next morning...
Oh, it was days after. Because...
Days.
Yeah, because that was when Obi-Wan was leaving to go to Utapau.
Yeah, because it was, like, the time jump in between, like, him going there and then him being there for a little bit. Oh, by the way, Grievous, I don't like seeing that. I didn't want to see my poor boy Grievous get shot. That was gross.
He was cool, though. Like, the actual design of him I really enjoyed, and the idea of basically a living droid with lightsabers. I mean, because the idea behind that is that he can't screw up, right? He is built to be perfect.
The perfect saber combatant.
Yeah, literally. Like, that's what he was created for, which is why he was a Jedi killer. I mean, realistically, I feel all three of us could talk about this movie all day, so I feel bad that we're really not talking about it all that much. But, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. It's just the best one. I mean, I feel personally, because it is my second favorite movie of all time, that every line, every little look, it just works with the characters, with the story, and then, you know, I feel it does a fantastic job of making you feel everything each individual character would feel whenever they're in a scene. So, like, with Obi-Wan, you feel kind of the true Jedi sense of things, like when he's fighting Grievous just one-on-one. You know, you feel the strength of the Force and the tacticalness and, you know, that kind of thing. But also kind of Obi-Wan's little flair of, like, just stuff.
Yeah.
And then with Anakin, you feel, you know, the fear and the confusion and then the power and just the rawness of what he can do. You know, because he becomes unleashed by the end of the film, and it's just beautiful to watch. So then, when they come together, that is hands down the greatest fight, I think, in movie history. Hand to hand, at least. That's just, I mean, you guys can say whatever else you want to say about it, but...
I mean, what are some other aspects of it that you love? Because I love knowing what this all ties into, what ties into that, which is the Clone Wars, which I think really adds a lot more to episode 3, in my opinion. Like, the whole Obi-Wan knows about Padme and all that. Like,
that Obi-Wan knows about
when we first saw that. Exactly, like, because when we first saw that, I remember you said, this changes everything.
It does.
For episode 3.
Well, because it's the kind of thing where, during the events of episode 3, there were so many times Obi-Wan could have been like, hey, so I understand the Council's putting you in a real tough spot, and I know about you, like, I obviously know about your relationship. She's pregnant, that you have to, if you're not the father, check that out, but, like, let me help you. I trust you. I'm here for you. Let me help you, you know? If Obi-Wan did that once, maybe Vader's not created.
Right.
Although, real talk, everything that happens in all of Star Wars is Obi-Wan's fault and could have been prevented from the Attack of the Clones.
we need to do a whole video
we
about that,
we need to do a whole video on that. Because it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely insane how every aspect of Star Wars could have been prevented from Obi-Wan. Like, Obi-Wan in, like, 2 conversations could have just ended Star Wars. But, whatever. I mean, there were something like some of the subtleties of Revenge of the Sith that I loved, like Padme's funeral. It doesn't always kill me. Like, I don't always get hit with that emotional wave when the scene starts, but when I see her holding the necklace that Anakin made for her, that I'm done. That's it. It's a rip. That I don't know how to function with that, because in her dying breath, the same way in his mother's dying breath, there's good in him. Like, I love you. You know how it, like, checking in. Like, I don't know. It's just I can't. How can I?
Tim's having a seizure. We'll be right back after this.
I love that movie so much, and there's nothing I would change about it, realistically. So, just to recap, our favorite film is Revenge of the Sith. That's the one that's moving on to face off against whatever the next two winners are, right? Coming in second is number 2, Attack of the Clones, and then obviously Phantom Menace was the worst of the 3. So, I mean, that wraps it up for our first video. I hope if you listened through all this, thanks, I guess. Congrats, you made it. We plan to upload once a week, theoretically around the same time. Depends on how long this takes me to edit and whatever, because we're all learning. We don't know how to do anything, but we're trying. So, thank you. And we will put on another video next week. Bye.